friends and crafters, and welcome back to my YouTube channel. My name is Deepa from DeeZinesByD, and today I have a card to share with you featuring Scrappy Tails products. Now what I did was I used a couple of the stamps from one of the sets to create a frame around this card here, and I'm going to show you how I did that today. So these are all the products I'm going to use. I'm actually showing you the paper pad here. There are 24 sheets, 12 designs, 4 of each design you can see. It's a great paper pad. There's a bunch of beautiful designs, and it makes it easier to use the stamps if you're really looking for that. I was going to use it on this card, but I didn't end up doing that, but there's a look at it if you wanted to see. I've got the Spread Your Wings stamp set here, and I'm going to use one of the butterflies here for my card along with the coordinating die. And then I've also got this stamp set here. It's called Birds and Blooms. Now, this is the one that I'm going to be focusing on. I've got the coordinating dies, which I'm also going to use. So first off, I've got 2 images that I absolutely love, and I think that they go together because the flowers are the same. So we have this like kind of vase, or I don't know what you would call it, but it's one of those like things that you might have outside where you put all your flowers. You might want to put like some pots in there. It could also, it looks like one of those things that could be a bird bath too. Sorry, I don't know the name for it. I'm just at a loss right now. But yeah, that thing is what I'm going to stamp out along with the beautiful little bird with the rose there and the little buds. Okay, that was bugging me. I literally just stopped my recording to look this up online, and it's actually just called a bird bath statue or flower statue. So I'm stamping out the bird bath statue here along with the little bird and the flowers, and you can see that I'm going to stamp this out many times. I'm just flipping my paper. That's just half of an 8.5 by 11 size piece of cardstock. I've stamped both of the images on one side, flipped it, done the other side, and I've done that on 2 pieces, so both halves of that piece of cardstock. Now I'm stamping this out with Memento Tuxedo Black because I'm going to do Copic Coloring, a lot of Copic Coloring. And now I've also lined up one of the butterflies here, and you can see that I've got the bird bath statue off the edge. I only want one full image of that statue and the bird, and then I'm just using the florals from the top of it, so I don't really need the bottom half. And that is why having it coming off of the paper is totally okay. So I stamped that about 3 times to get that black, really black on that butterfly. And now I'm going to do my Copic Coloring. Now you can see that I have all of the colors that I'm using listed at the top left corner here. And as I mentioned, I'm only coloring 2 of these images completely. The rest of them, I'm focusing on the florals because those are the pieces that I'm going to use to create my frame. So for this flower bird bath or statue here, I'm using a bunch of reds, and I'm coloring the 2 outer flowers red. And then the center flower is going to have a peach tone to it. And then the actual bird bath statue is going to be like a light blue. Now, if you're not into Copic Coloring or you're not interested in watching that portion of the video, you can go ahead and skip forward to about 9 minutes and 5 seconds, and you'll see more of the die cutting and assembly of this card. Now, if you did want to pay more attention to the Copic Coloring, I do like to keep it here in the video just so that, I know there's some people that do find the coloring actually a bit relaxing to watch, and it is relaxing to do. In terms of the coloring, I'm not doing anything too fancy. These images are quite small, so it's hard to do that flicking technique. There are a few petals on one of the flowers which are nice and large, so where those are, I'm doing that flicking technique and kind of just drawing these nice wispy lines out from the center of the petal, and that just gives it a nicer, more floral look, a little bit more, gives it a bit more of a realistic look, because I mean petals have, they have striations. They're not completely flat and just, one tone. So I find with Copic Coloring, there are 2 ways you can go about it. And the way that you choose to do it is completely up to you based on the amount of time you have and what you find is more understandable or just works better for you in the end. One is that you can color in your entire flower with your lightest tone. Now, when you do this, it basically saturates that portion of the cardstock. So it's already got some of your alcohol marker on it. So then when you add the next color, it blends a little bit more nicely, because if you follow or remember the basics of science, likes dissolve likes. So, water will dissolve in water, like ice will dissolve in water, and oil will stay with oil, and the two don't mix. So in this case, that's how actually the coloring works. If you did wonder, Memento ink has more of a water-based quality to it, Memento ink, and you'll notice if you do watercoloring with it, it doesn't quite work out. That's where you need pigment inks. But for alcohol marker use, alcohol doesn't really mix with water, so that's why when you use the Memento ink, the water-based dye ink, the alcohol ink from your marker is not going to mix with that ink, and therefore you don't get any smudging or blurring of your stamped image. Okay, so getting a little off topic here, back to the coloring. You can color in the entire flower with the lightest color, and then come in with your mid and dark tones, and they're going to blend a little more nicely because you've already got some of that alcohol marker on the page. So as I said, likes dissolve likes, that new color of alcohol marker is just going to mix with that first color that you put down a little nicely, or a little more nicely. And this would be the easier method, I would say, because you're only going to put down your 3 colors once, unless you want to add some added touches. Now, the next way to do it is the way I do it. It takes a little bit longer because you do kind of have to layer a little bit more and come back with the colors more than once. This way I start with my darkest color, and I'll start coloring from where I feel the darkest or the most shadows would be. So I find my shadows, I color in, I do my flicking at the base of my petal towards the outside, and then I'll come in with the mid-tone. I'll blend out. So when I start coloring with the mid-tone, I'm not going to start like halfway out of my petal. I'm going to start right where I started with the darkest tone and flick outwards from there, but just extend my color a little farther. Then I'll come in with the lightest tone, and with the light tone, I don't always do the flicking, because I find that when I do that, I kind of go over my lines and don't color in my image as neatly. So what I'll do is I'll kind of outline my image and then just color it in, and use the lightest tone to kind of just mix the first 2 tones. Then I will go back with the darkest and the mid-tone to just add a bit more detail and darken up those colors a little more so that they stand out more. And when it comes to coloring in flowers, I find this method works best. Now, I've just shown you that I've colored in everything. So I've colored in the entire bird bath and that bird with the flower. And then I've colored in just all the flowers on the rest of all the stamped images. Now, all I have left is the butterfly, and the butterfly really heavily uses that flicking method, especially in the center. So this uses the exact same principle that I just explained. I'm using my darkest color and I'm flicking outwards from the center, then my mid-tone flicking outwards, just extending that color a little further, and then my lightest tone to just kind of blend in everything. Then I'm going to go back and grab those 2 darker colors and then just define those lines again. Then for the outer portion of the butterfly, you'll notice that the butterflies in general, like the design or the lines on the butterfly, are the darkest. So I'm going to just outline all of the lines on the edges of the butterfly to kind of enhance them with the darkest color. Then I'll go around that, extend the color a little more with the mid-tone, and blend it out with the dark. And then I think that is pretty much good for the outside portion of the butterfly. Now, once I'm completely done with all of my Copic coloring, what I have left to do is to cut everything out. So I'm grabbing my coordinating dies. I've got one for the butterfly, and then I've got 2, one for the bird bath and the second one for the bird and the rose. So I'm going to have to, put these down, cut them, and reposition them and cut a few times to get them all out, but it really doesn't take that long. I can tell you it definitely doesn't take as long as fussy cutting them, which is why I love having the coordinating dies when it comes to stamp sets. It just, I don't know, I feel like, it's like a person with a luxurious house. Like I feel rich, like, yeah, I have my coordinating dies. So anyways, moving on, I have a card base here, and this is a little bit of a different shape. It is not a typical card size. I have cut it to about 6 by 4 inches, just a little bit less. So I think it's actually at It's at 5 3/4 by 3 1/4 because I want to have a border on my card. And you can see that I'm actually cutting that bird off of the rose with the buds, that image, because I'm not going to use the bird. I just want that rose. Same here with the bird baths with the flowers. You can see that I'm attaching them to the edge there, just the flower portion. And I'm going to end up cutting those pieces off. So here I'm using these roses to create a beautiful frame because I absolutely love the look of these, but I don't really need the bird bath portion. So this is a great example of how you can use your stamps to work for you. So, you know, you could use that as a focal point like I am going to do on this card, but now I'm also using it for the border, or you could just do some mass stamping and you could build up your stamps in that way. There's really no limit to using stamps, and that's what I love about them. So now that I've got down the main like flower bunches there from the bird bath, I'm gonna now add those roses that were with the bird. So you can see that I've cut the bird off and they work perfectly here in the corners just to tie together this frame. Now you could complete the frame at the bottom. However, I wanted to keep it blank just to give it a bit of a different look. So this is a 3-sided frame, and I'm now going to add that main bird bath where I colored everything in the center right at the bottom. And then I'm going to do the same thing with the butterfly. Now on the butterfly, I'm adding a double layer of foam squares to the wings just to make it pop out. I find when it comes to the focal point, I like to add some dimension so that it just really helps it pop out and stand out a little bit more. So now I've got my butterfly and I've got my flower bath there. And here I'm kind of looking through the pattern paper and seeing whether I could put it in the background. However, I realized that my card is pretty busy in itself, so it's probably better just to leave that pattern paper. If there was more of maybe like, actually I could have used that one with the butterflies and the teal and the purple, but you know, I just felt that the white would just outline the frame a little better and have it stand out more. Now I've gone ahead and I'd made the card base here. So the card base is 6 by 4. What I like to do is just cut my 8.5 by 11 piece of cardstock down at the 6-inch mark. I fold it do a score line at 4 inches, fold it, and then cut off the extra bit there. And I keep all of those extra bits to use as scraps. You'll see when I do like stamping and stuff where I'm going to do die cutting, I usually stamp on those scraps. Okay, so now my sentiment, I'm going to do some heat embossing on some black cardstock with some white embossing powder. I just added my heat tool, which is important for all embossing, to make sure you don't get any of those stray pieces of powder on your dark black cardstock here. I've used the Thinking of You stamp from the same Birds and Blooms stamp set. And you can see that when I actually stamped it here on this piece of cardstock, it's off center. And that was because I was actually just going to cut it out and maybe put it in the center of the butterfly or the bird bath at the bottom. But I decided to actually use it as a strip in the end. Now, since it was a last minute call to use it as a strip, I did have to do like a little bit of cutting on the edge just to even it out and center it a bit. But I did add some of those foam strips to the edges there, and then I'm just going to have it kind of over top of that flower bird bath statue. I'll center it there on the bottom, and that's my final card. Now, I still, I'm really wanted to use that bird on the outside of the card, but it just didn't look right. It kind of put everything kind of off center. So I'm using it on the inside of my card instead. And I'm using some of the extra flowers that I didn't use on the front on the inside as well. So that is always an option. I always love having extra, so I use those extras on the inside of my card. Now my favorite part's time for embellishments. Scrappy Tails has a whole bunch of them. I've got a whole bunch here. And I've decided to pick out these like bluish purpley pearls. They just really match the butterfly perfectly. And because they are a bit of a different color, which was why I made the butterfly a different color, they stand out more, especially on that floral frame. I'm just grabbing some of them and positioning them, and then I'm going to glue them down with my Barely Arts glue. And it doesn't stop there. That's not all, folks. We got to add some more shine. So I've got my diamond stickles here with my trusty diamond stickles. I think I'm running out. I use it so much. I'm just adding some of that in the center of the butterfly and a little bit on those striations on the outer portion of the wings. And that's it. And you can see it like just shine so gorgeously in the light. That's my card inspiration for today. I hope that you'll pull out your stamps and find some floral or even other bits that you like to create a frame with on your card. I hope you guys have been inspired. If you like this video, don't forget to like and subscribe. Everything that I've used here is linked within my blog, which is linked in the description below, or there's a direct link to the Scrappy Tails site if you wanted to take a look at these products. Have a great day, guys, and I will see you next time. Bye.